This short video is designed to show you how tables can be used to control document layout and design in a word processing document. We'll go into this in much more detail in future classes. So think of today as a high-level overview that will be further refined in upcoming sessions. So what we have right here is a sample resume that's pretty typical in today's world. You have at the top contact information and the applicant's name, Randall Barrett, and then his mailing address, phone number, and email address. No big deal. Horizontal line here separates the header from the body text. Notice that this particular author used a sans serif font, in this case Arial, for their name, and in fact for all the content in their resume to make it much easier to read. So developing a heading of this sort isn't a big deal. Everything's aligned according to the left margin. You play a little bit with font size and font weight, but by and large you can change anything up here without messing up the layout at all. This is very easy to update. That said, when we look at the main body of the resume, we actually have three separate columns of information. We have our leftmost column, professional summary. I'd change that to just summary, but you get the idea. Work history, skills, and education. Standard layout in which headings are in the left margin, body text is in the bulk of the right-hand side of the page. Column 1, section headings. Column 2, it's a real skinny column for white space. Column 3, your content column. Now, if this resume was developed not using tables, it would be really hard to keep current. So if, for instance, I did a professional summary here, I'd have to play with tabs and the space key in order to align my text on the right-hand side of the document. And anytime I changed anything on any individual line, like suppose I got rid of professional and decided to use something like workplace summary. By changing the word count and the letter count at the beginning of a line, it's going to force me to adjust everything else on that line, and those adjustments may spill down further in the remaining of the document design. So that's an example of unsustainable layout development. Unsustainable layout development means that if you make a small change, you have to redesign the entire document. Not an effective use of time, and it makes consistency really difficult to achieve. Now, when you look at a document like this, it's nice and clean and easy to read. And what I would encourage you to do is to start looking at information in terms of blocks, design blocks. So if I take this very basic resume and I can block out specific content into different sections, and by doing that, it helps me develop a schematic of how the document is laid out. But by breaking things down into these sections, into these blocks, it tells me how I might want to structure tables, so it makes it easier for me to develop and maintain my text without having to redo the entire thing. So when I look at Mr. Barrett's resume, I see his heading information. That could be a table that has one cell. In other words, one element horizontal, one vertical. And it sits there. It's separate from the rest of the document. By making the heading an individual table, what I'm able to do is make changes up in the heading information section without impacting the rest of the document. When I look at the second table I developed, 3 columns and 1, 2, 3, 4 rows. Columns are the vertical elements, rows are the horizontal. By going into a design grid of this sort, I can change the content in any one of these grids without impacting the rest of the document's design. So what that means is I get layout consistency, but I also get a layout that's a lot easier to maintain going forward. So what I'd like to do is just to show you really quickly how you can use tables to achieve specific layout design features. So I'm just going to add another page to my Google Docs. The same principle holds true in any word processing document, any word processing application. So I'm using Google Docs. It works in Word, LibreOffice, whatever. So let's say I'm going to do a resume in which I include my heading information. I'll put my name in, Don Vesio, my address, I'll give my email address. Let me scroll down a little bit. What I'm doing is just giving myself some space so you can see. If I could spell right, that would be even better. My email address. And I'll give a phone number. Notice that when you enter in an address, whether it's a hyperlink or an email address, it'll automatically format as a link. What I'm going to do is remove the URL so I have plain text. Okay, so I can do a number of different layout choices here to make this a little more appealing. I can take my name, highlight it, I can make it bold, and I can go to 18 point, and it really sets things off. Because I went bold here in a bigger font, I can keep my font the same size here, but to make it stand out from the rest of the text, I'd go 11 point. I just turn in the bold, and then I can have the remainder of my text below, and it's pretty fine. It's a nice, clean, simple design. I could also, if I wanted to, center the text. I think this tends to be an older formatting convention. Generally speaking, you're going to see information blocked like this, either aligned left. Sometimes what you would do is even see it aligned right. This is a little less frequent. It's more of a convention of longer documentation, but much less with resumes. Okay, so I have my document here. It's okay. You know, it's not amazingly interesting visually. Let's suppose I want to have my name centered. So I'll center my name. And then I want all of my contact information in one line, kind of like what Mr. Barrett does, only in this case I want it centered. What I could do is add a couple spaces, move that line up by hitting delete, add a couple spaces, hit delete, get rid of the hyperlink by right-clicking on it and removing the link. What I can do is highlight the entire text and center it like that. And that's pretty clean. You know, it's a nice solid design. If I went with a design like this, I'd probably go and make my name even a little bit bigger, go to 24 point. And then what I would do is to further reinforce a separation between my name and all this contact information, I'd probably insert a horizontal line like so, kill off that extra white space, and that's a perfectly serviceable heading. Now, suppose I wanted to spread this text apart further. I want Douglas to be way over to the left margin and my phone number way over to the right. What I could do is hit the space key, and notice I'm starting to shift things around. I do it here. And what I've got to do is get rid of that extra space after the zip. That was kind of silly. I'm sorry about that. I should have went like this. But you get the basic idea. This looks pretty clean, but you'll notice that I have way more white space here than I do here. So what I'd have to do is say, okay, I'm going to delete 3 of the spaces there. I'll add 3 spaces here. It's still not right. Add a couple there, add a couple here, and you get the idea. It's going to be really hard to be consistent in my design. Notice that as I added spaces after the Douglas, it pushed my name over. So it's not my email address over to the right of my name. I would definitely want that centered. So it's a lot of futzing around. And if I decided to change any of this information, like go from Douglas to Worcester, and kill off the link again, remove the link, it would again change the layout of this line. So what you can do is, instead of just using space keys and hard returns and things of that sort, delete one more, that looks better. What I would do instead is think of this as a table. So I highlighted this heading information. I have my first row, which includes just my name. I have my second row, which has my contact information. And then if I look at this vertically, I have a column here that goes from Worcester. I'm not highlighting it very well. But a left column would have the Worcester MA address, the middle column my name and email, and the right column a phone number. If I absolutely wanted to be sure that the layout was consistent, what I would do is use a table instead. To use a table, I would go Insert, Table, and then I'm just going to choose 3 columns and 2 rows. Boom, like that. And then what I could do is put my name in it. I'll put my mailing address. Oops, 01602. I'll put my email address. And my phone number. I missed a letter, sorry, 508-929-8000. That's the university's main letter. Okay. Now each of these table cells can be formatted individually. I'm going to say I want my name centered. I will just click in the cell and just do center aligned like that, and there it goes. I can do alignment for multiple cells by highlighting all the elements. If I center all of those guys, they're all centered. But I'm looking at this, I go, it's not really balanced all that nicely. I have 2 lines here, 1 line here. What I might do is move my cursor, click outside. I move my cursor to any of the vertical lines. I can drag it over, drag it over a little bit more, and I can adjust the width of a column by dragging its vertical elements. I'm looking at this. This is centered. This looks okay. It's roughly centered. This looks kind of cramped. What I might do is right align it. Not the most balanced thing. What I'll probably do is go like this. I'll go to 24.5. It's reasonably good. The other thing I could do is go like this, and I'll hit the Shift and Enter key, bounce that down. I want 2 lines. What I'll do is left align it like that. Not bad. What I'll do is push this down by hitting Enter. Push this down by hitting Enter. And then what I have is the bottom row, all the alignment. The 486 is orphaned above, but that's okay. It'll read clean. Now, you have all these lines. You can change the width, thickness, visibility of the lines by right-clicking in the table. And then what I'm going to do is go to Table Properties. That will allow you to choose a variety of different options. What I will do mostly is use alignment and color. We're going to go into the more detailed options in a little bit. But basically what I'm going to do is, now that I'm happy with this alignment, I'm going to go to my table border. I'm going to turn it into 0. And notice that the borders go away. Now you have your alignment. Works pretty well. Really simple. If I ever want the borders to come back, go back, right-click, Table Properties, and I'm going to go back to 1 so they're visible. There's my alignment. There's my document. What I can also do is use these tables as a framework. So I'm going to drag my name over here. I'm going to close off my tables property so I can get all my menu items. And then what I'm going to do is left justify. So I want my name and contact information in the upper right-hand corner. It's kind of a contemporary visual way of presenting my information. I'll take my mailing address, cut it, put it here. I'll take my email address, Control X to cut, Control V to paste, and then I'll get my alignment all straightened out by aligning everything left. So everything's aligned underneath the D. I have my table. I'm going to right click in it, go to Table Properties, and then I am going to change the size to 0 and a different type of layout. I don't like the amount of white space between my name and the mailing address. I think, I just don't think that works all that well. So what I'll do is go back to my Table Properties so I can see my lines. There they are. And what I'm going to do, instead of having a separate row, so I'll take my content there, go like this, paste my information so there's less separation. I look at my table, I go, that's not too bad. I'm going to slide my name a little more to the left so it looks a little less cramped. There I go. Highlight, turn my table borders off, and there's a heading. And I can change anything up here, and nothing in the main body of my resume will change afterwards. Again, though, right-click, Table Properties. If I were going to clean this up, in all honesty, what I would probably do is highlight this bottom row, right-click, delete my row, gets rid of unnecessary elements. What I might do also, in order to space this, I think I want this top left. I might drag and make a really skinny column on the left-hand side. Go like this. Drag my content over here. Right-click in this column. I'm going to delete my column. And again, notice if I move to this vertical line, I can adjust it. Trying to see, there we go. Any way that I want. Made it a little skinnier. It provides a little visual interest. Turn the borders off. I right-click, Table Properties, like that. Turn the border to 0. There I am. I think I am going to add a horizontal line to separate that from my body text. Delete that extra space, and there I go. Now, in order to get this 3-column format, I'm going to create a separate table for the main body. So my heading has a different design than the main body of my document. It's really like 2 documents kind of smushed together. I have 3 columns, and I have 4 rows. Now, here's a tip. The column count is important. It's easy to add rows, as I'll show you. So what I generally will do is I'll just focus on how many columns I need, make a table with 1 row, and this I add them as I go. So what I'm going to do is recreate this resume's design, and I'm going to do it using tables. So I have my document. I'm going to click in some open space. I'm going to insert table, and I am going to go to 3 cells, 3 columns, 1 row, and there I am. I am going to have my left column is going to be my headings. I'll make that bold. B. This middle column is going to be just a spacer. So I can have lots and lots of text. That can be formatted any way that I want. I'm going to close off that just so I have a little easier time. I'm going to make these bulleted lists. I'll highlight this. I'm just going to copy a bunch so I have a bunch of stuff. And notice how the table expands as I go along. Now, I have here my summary, and then I have work, and then I have skills, and I have educations. If I want to add an additional row, I go to the very rightmost column in my table. I go to the end of any content, and then I simply hit the Tab key, like this. Oops, sorry, wrong application. I right-click, I'll insert a row below. I was using Microsoft Word, I apologize for that. Thinking Microsoft Word. So I just right-clicked, and then insert a row below. I'm going to put down, or I'm just going to call this experience, which isn't a bad way of going. I have all of my materials here, there, another job, double enter, materials here, and so on. You get the idea. Everything expands as I enter. I am going to insert a row below. I'm going to put down education and click here. And I'm just going to add my materials there. So you get the basic idea. What I did was I created, I'm just going to push this down to show you, a simple table, insert, table, like this. I'm going to adjust my spacing. I want my center column just to provide consistent white space. I have my headings here. I'm hitting tab, going over, my content here, and that's all there is to it. Now, I could change any of this stuff, get rid of all that. What's nice about using tables, not only do you get a consistent layout, but what I can also do is change the content in any one of these boxes, and basically what it will do is prevent me from messing up the layout in the rest of the document. So just by changing this text, go back to the way it was, I want to get rid of all those bullets, and instead I'm going to write my summary as a paragraph. Turn off that, and go like this. Pretty easy to do, okay? And notice it doesn't do anything else to the rest of the document other than move things up and down. But each element remains the same. Let's say there's a little too much space between the column, the heading information and the body. I'm just going to adjust it accordingly. If I want to change experience to work history, notice it doesn't impact the spacing, the alignment of anything else. And I can push that down, again the same. When I'm done, I right-click in my table. I go to my table properties. I go to my table border. I turn things off, 0. And there's my professional layout and design without having to mess around with a lot of manual processes and things of that sort. You can also do things like, I'll close that off. I have this, my heading. If I want additional visual element, which may or may not work, I just want to test it out. I'm going to right-click, go to my table properties. I'm going to turn my borders on just so I can see what I'm doing. Okay, it's not bad. What I can do is change my cell background. I'm going to go with a pale yellow. Do the same here. If I selected both at the same time, I can actually change the backgrounds at the same time, like that. I want a 0-point table border, and I have a highlighted block right up there. I don't like it though, I would discourage you. The main point is that you can do a lot with formatting using tables, and then once you're done, you can turn the borders on and off as you see fit. Again, insert, table, choose a number of elements you need, and keeping in mind that if you right-click in the table, you can always add rows or columns as necessary. I don't know. This seems pretty rough. It's pretty long. I hope it works. I'm going to save it. and we'll talk more about it in class on Wednesday. Thank you again for your patience.